So now that we've gotten our hands on Season 2.5 for a little bit now, I think it's time for my updated tier list. Now when it comes to these tier lists, usually tier lists are about meta, what we're going to be seeing, what characters are going to be good. And like always, I'm going to be placing my picks and then explaining why I put them where. Now I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. In my personal opinion, I truly believe that every single character in theory could be S tier. And what I mean by that is that some heroes on paper might seem extremely weak, but those quote unquote extremely weak heroes might be amazing in someone else's hands. So in these videos, I'm usually talking about the majority rather than the minority. With that out of the way, let's get started. Now, Doctor Strange has been highly picked through Season 1, Season 1.5, Season 0, and sometimes a little bit in Season 2, mainly just the portal back to spawn. I mean, it's still kind of the case in Season 2.5 because if you remember previously, in Season 2, the first thing and probably the most major thing they did was that they reduced the Maelstrom of Madness conversion ratio of dark magic to damage from 1.3 to 1.2, meaning you can no longer one-shot enemies through a Luna ult or a Mantis ult or anything like that. However, they are doing some changes for Season 2.5 to Doctor Strange, and that's they're adjusting the damage falloff of his primary attack from starting at 10 meters and reducing to 62.5% at 20, to starting at 10 meters, reducing to 80% at 20 meters. So that's a little bit of a nerf. Not the end of the world for Strange, because you need to be playing a little bit close for Strange. The biggest thing is that they're removing the range damage falloff of Maelstrom of Madness. That means within that 8-meter radius of the Maelstrom of Madness, no matter where you are, if you're right on the edge of that 8 meters or you're point blank, we will still take that 120 damage from the Maelstrom of Madness. So that's an overall buff to Doctor Strange. Now, originally, I believe I had placed him about A tier. I still don't think he's S tier. He sits in between A and B for me personally with the changes. So the change is good. So it definitely makes him a lot stronger now. A little bit more versatile. Maybe you'd be picking him a lot more. But a majority of the time, again, you're picking Doctor Strange to portal back to the point when need be, swapping it to get that last touch, whatever you need. So I would put him A minus, B plus, but for the video's sake, right now I'm putting him A. Then at the end, I might mix and match a little bit, but right now I think he's sitting comfortably at A. Now we move on to our next tank or our next Vanguard lineup, and that's Hulk. Again, in Season 2, they increased his base move speed from 600 to 650, which is a pretty major buff. They reduced the cooldown time for his indestructible guard from 12 seconds to 10, which is his shield, so you have a 10-second cooldown for a massive shield now. And then they decreased the minimum charge time for his incredible leap from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. That means you can click it and you instantly jump. So very good. Now, I will say a major thing that's coming to Hulk is that they're removing the Gamma team up with Hulk and Iron Man. Now you'll only have Hulk and Namor. And I feel that having that Gamma team up with Iron Man was so strong, you got so much more DPS out of it, that Hulk might become a little bit less picked now. And especially since we're going into a more poke and brawl-like comp or team composition for Season 2.5, playing Hulk might be a little bit more difficult because characters are going to be really able to whittle down Hulk. Even though Hulk, for the most part, can survive quite a while, I feel if he's diving into a brawl comp or a poke comp, he's going to get shredded down rather quickly, especially with Emma Frost still running around the map. So for the most part, I think I'm still putting Hulk A. Again, if he still had the Iron Man team up, he would probably be S. But the fact that they removed that, I think, literally just knocks him down from S in my personal opinion. But of course, we'll see how things play out once Season 2.5 has been out for a little while. Again, this is a early tier list, so nothing special. This is predictions, essentially. Now, when it comes to our main man, Magneto, apart from his kit from Season 2 to Season 2.5, nothing was really changed except for his right click, and they increased the charging speed of the rings from 4 seconds a stack to 3 seconds a stack, which that means that you're going to be able to right click or use your secondary fire a lot more frequently as Magneto, so overall a buff to his damage output or potential damage output. And because they didn't change anything else, my opinion still stands. This character is still S tier, especially with the Emma team up, even though Emma was a little bit nerfed this Season 2.5 patch. Overall, Magneto still probably one of, if not the strongest tank in the game still, on par with characters like, again, Emma, Groot, things like that. So still S tier in my eyes. But of course, let me know in the comments what you think as well. This is just early predictions, not trying to force you to play certain heroes. This is literally just from a high elo standpoint and what I think is going to be meta, so on. Now, when it comes to Thor, they're doing some pretty diabolical things with this character. They're adjusting his hammer throw ability effect to a standard ability, so it no longer consumes a Thor force, which is nice. This is a good thing. I think this is always should have been a thing. However, they're also removing the ability to cool down to 6 seconds, and Thor gains 1 Thor force from each hammer throw enemy hit. So just this alone, this would seem like an amazing buff to the character. You know, you're going to be able to do combos a lot easier and overall do more damage. But they're decreasing the throw hit damage from 70 to 45 damage, which is absolutely insane. And the return damage from 30 to 20, which, again, I'm not really sure why. Then they're decreasing the shield value gained when consuming Thor Force, adjust the bonus health gained from each Thor Force consumed from 100 to 75, and adjust the maximum bonus health from 200 to 150. So instead of having 800 HP maxed out on Thor Force, you get about 750 now. Now this change is, I think it kills the character straight up. I think this is an insane change. I'm not really sure why they're doing this. I don't see Thor picked a ton in general, and so I'm just surprised that they're nerfing him this hard. Honestly, I think I put Thor C now. Like originally, like season 2, I had him B, but with these changes, he's like C or even D tier. I'm gonna go C, like on the safer side, but again, absolutely, they massacred my Thor boy. Like I'm not sure why they're doing it, but it just kind of is what it is. I'm sorry to my Thor players out there. This unfortunately hurts you, but we'll see how it goes. So next up on the list, we have none other than our lovable treant, Groot. Now, Groot, for the most part, was a S-tier hero for the longest time. But come Season 2.5, they're actually decreasing the damage of Vine Strike per hit from 70 to 65, and they're increasing the Ironwood Wall's cooldown from 8 seconds to 12. Now, 8 seconds to 12 doesn't seem like a major difference, but with the changes that they have been doing from previous seasons, this is going to make Groot rather hard to play. It's going to have his Iron Wall uptime is going to be significantly lowered, basically less HP from the Ironwood Wall as well. So I do think that this is a major disadvantage to Groot now. But I still feel that Groot's ultimate is the main source or the reason why you pick Groot. It's that huge Zarya-like ultimate that clumps all your teammates or all the enemies up together, and you can easily team wipe teams. So I still believe he's in between S or A. I'm still going to put him S in my personal opinion. Even though these changes are big, I think his ultimate potential is still there, so that's why we're keeping him S tier for now. Now, Peni Parker is an interesting character. Between Season 2 and Season 2.5, she didn't receive any major changes, whether it's buffs to her kit or nerfs to her kit as well. The biggest thing is that she now has a team-up with Rocket Raccoon. This team-up allows her to spawn 2 of these spider generators, whatever they're actually called. I don't know the exact name. Now, overall, I think this change is very good for Peni Parker. It makes her playable in triple tank or triple Vanguard strategies. And for the most part, if you're trying to hold a defensive side, whether on Convergence or Convoy, Peni Parker can easily be played. But the thing is, to make it so useful, you have to have a rocket on your team. So that is something to consider when you're trying to play Peni now. But with that being said, I believe Peni Parker is B tier. Now hold on, before you comment below, I think Peni Parker is B tier without the team up ability. With the team up ability, I think she moves up to A. I think having the second generator is that impactful. So she's A with it, but if she doesn't have a rocket on her team, it's going to be B tier. So for the sake, I'm saying that she has the team up since it's Season 2.5, so I'm putting her A. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, Captain America, unfortunately, they kind of massacred him. They adjusted his base health from 600 to 575, but with the team up, it's not the end of the world. You still have a pretty solid amount of health. And they increased the delay of shield recovery from 2 seconds to 4 after unleashing Living Legend. So if you're holding up your shield and it breaks, it will now be a 4-second timer for it to come back. They also nerfed his ultimate by increasing the energy cost of Freedom Charge ultimate from 2,800 to 3,100. He has less survivability now. In this current meta with all the dive going on, I mean, it makes sense that he's getting nerfed because he was rather strong and rather annoying. But because we are swapping to a more poke/brawl team compositions, Captain America is kind of in a weird spot now. That being said, those changes that were made are kind of big. So he kind of sits between B and A for me. I think I put him A now. He's sitting in between the two. The changes do hurt them, and because of the transitioning of this dive comp, it's going to be harder for him to really get away with certain things, especially with characters like Punisher, Hawkeye getting buffed. Even though Captain America is great at countering Hawkeye, having the Punisher constantly breaking your shield as Captain America can be rather annoying. It's so hard to know till we get some more data on him, how good he actually is going to be. Like I said, this is just like a early prediction tier list. What I think is probably going to be good. Nothing necessarily is amazing. Nothing that's 100% certain. Things can change. And of course, like I always do, I'll make an updated tier list in a couple weeks or so. Subscribe so you see that. But for right now, I'm putting him A. Now, next up, we have Venom. And there was no changes made to Venom from Season 2 to Season 2.5. But the biggest thing is actually that they removed Symbiotic Bond, which is with Venom, Peni Parker, and Spider-Man. So you no longer have to use Spider-Man one-shot. So there's a less incentive to play Venom now. Now, I'm not saying you can't play Venom without a Spider-Man, but usually you would pick Venom to enable your Spider-Man player. Because of that, because they didn't really do any of the changes, and they're kind of nerfing dive altogether, having that dive tank is a little less of a priority now. I'm not saying that Venom is a terrible hero. I'm just saying he's going to be less picked now. For that reason, I'm probably going to have to put him in the B tier. It's sad. I really like Venom. I think he's a very unique character in this game. I think he has a very cool concept where he's HP based with his shield and his ultimate. He has a swing like Spider-Man, but again, the nerfs to dive and the removal of the symbiote bond team up kind of lowers him on my personal tier list. So here's the thing. I still think this character is very good in my opinion. I don't know if he's necessarily S tier anymore because I don't believe he's on par of Magneto, Groot, or even Emma Frost. Like, he's still okay. He's very good, and because we're going to a more poke/brawl comp, I see him fitting in a lot better than some of the other Vanguards. But for the most part, I don't think he's S anymore because you have Emma Frost. Because you have Groot. Groot counters Thing, as well as Emma Frost counters Thing as well. Then Magneto is just Magneto. So I think I'm going to put him A, but on the lower scale. Again, my left to right on these tier lists mean absolutely nothing in the order. I'm just putting them in these categories. It doesn't matter the order whatsoever, just to let you know. But I think he's A. I don't think he's S anymore. I don't think he's bad enough for B. Like, I still think you can play him, so A is fine. Now we come to Emma Frost, and what they did for Season 2.5 is increase the range of telepathic pulse from 15.5 meters to 18 meters, meaning that in normal form she has a longer range with her primary attack, so that's very good. They're decreasing the shield value of Mind's Aegis from 500 to 400, which is a little bit of a nerf, and then they're increasing the cooldown of Carbon Crush from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. That means you can only pull off one Carbon Crush in Diamond form, which I think is definitely a good change. Then they decreased the hit damage of Crystal Kick from 50 damage to 40, and decreased the extra damage dealt when propelling the enemies into the wall from 100 to 90 damage, meaning you can no longer necessarily one-shot squishy heroes. That's a little bit of a nerf, but overall I still think the character is very strong for what she is. Just because she's doing a little bit less damage, the priority of her kit is shutting down players, and because we're going into more of a poke comp, she can be seen as a little bit weaker, but for the most part, I still think she's a very strong character with the right utility that really enables her in the game. Her ult's still the same, still very good. For the most part, the little bit of the propelling to the wall is the biggest nerf to her. So I think keeping her S is perfectly fine. So kicking off our duelist section, we have none other than Black Panther. Now, Black Panther is a character who's very interesting. He didn't receive any changes for Season 2.5. And because we're leaving a dive comp and we're heading more to a brawl/poke team composition, Black Panther is going to be a little bit harder to be played. especially when you have hard counters like Emma Frost, Thing, Bucky, Namor. You have all these characters that can really shut down a BP. And yes, there are a ton of good Black Panther players out there. I've seen them everywhere. But for the majority of the player base, he isn't the best. So I see the value in the character. I truly do. Like for my one tricks out there, it makes the character look insane. But again, in the current meta with what heroes are available, I'm going to put him C tier. Now, he could be S tier in someone else's hands, but I'm going for off of what I see in high play, high elo, and pro play. So I'm putting him C, unfortunately. Moving down the list, we have Black Widow. Now, she didn't receive any changes between Season 2 and Season 2.5. However, she did get a new team up, and that's with Punisher. So basically what they did was Operation Microchip. As a team-up anchor, the Punisher gains a maximum health increase of 25 and a 5% bonus boost in damage output. Black Widow unlocks a new pulse rifle ability through her team-up with Punisher. Now, at first, I thought this team-up was completely terrible until I tried it in the early access, and it's pretty good because you can rapid-fire it, but in terms of if it's a little bit of a downgrade between Black Widow and Hawkeye, I do think it's a downgrade, but it's still a very good team-up ability. That being said, in the right hands, Widow can look like the best character in the entire game, and I believe any character can look like the best character in the game in the right hands. But the thing is, there's better characters out there like Hawkeye and Hela that kind of shut down Black Widow. I mean, I really want her to put her super high up, but I think in the current meta of what's going to be about to happen, I don't think she's going to be insane. Unfortunately, I'm going to put him like in between C and B for a majority of the player base, but for like my one tricks out there, of course, she's going to look S tier in the right hands. But I think C's okay for now. I could move her up B if I really wanted to. Maybe at the end of the video, do a little mixing matching, but majority, I think she still sits at the C tier. So moving down the list, we have Hawkeye, and Hawkeye received some pretty insane changes. First, they increased the base damage of his arrow from 32 damage to 34. They increased the projectile damage of blast arrow from 15 to 16 and increased the spell field damage from 32 to 34. They also increased the maximum focus from 70 to 75 and increased the charging speed when aiming at the enemy from 100 a second to 108 a second and charge fall-off speed from 30 a second to 32. And he also received a new team-up ability with Luna Snow, where he gets a freezing arrow that pierces through walls, which is pretty insane. Now, in the current meta, because we're going to more of a poke/brawl meta, he fits perfectly into this, and I genuinely believe that this character is now S tier. Or he's like in between S and A, but I'm leaning more towards the S tier, because just how good he is. I don't think there is really not enough to be said about it, but I truly believe he's S tier now rather than A, so S tier is fine. Then I guess also we have Hela, and they actually buffed Hela. They increased the charge capacity of the Night Sword Thorn from 8 to 10, so she has 2 more shots of her primary attack. Besides that, she didn't receive any changes to her team-ups or nerfs to her kit. All they literally did was give her 2 more shots, which is actually a major buff because it's going to increase her damage output as a whole, and this make her a lot more annoying to deal with him because we're swapping to a more poke brawl comp. She fits perfectly into this team composition, so this character is still yet S. From Season 0 to Season 2.5, Hela is still S, which is absolutely insane. I think they just love this character. It's kind of strange, but here we are. Hela S tier. What a surprise. Moving down the list, we come to Iron Fist. From Season 2 to 2.5, he was practically a complete menace, either always played or always banned. But for Season 2.5, what they did was lower the Dragon's defensive damage blocked bonus health conversion rate from 1.5 to 1.3. So he's going to be getting less bonus health from successfully blocking. Then they decreased the maximum bonus health converted from damage blocked from 200 to 175, so slightly nerfing the amount of damage he can receive and have after. Then they slightly decreased the dash distance and the Z-axis, which is to be basically they nerfed. He can no longer helicopter. He no longer fly around, which honestly I don't think a melee character should be able to really fly around like that. It didn't really make sense to me. Then they reduced the dragon's defensive cooldown reduction from his hits from 1.5 to 1 second. And they kind of nerfed his damage a little bit. It was a little bit of a shadow nerf. I'm not sure why they didn't add it in the patch notes. But overall, I still think the character is very strong. I still think he can be played, but it's going to be a little bit harder because you're playing against poke. And I will say ranged poke is kind of where Iron Fist gets shut down. So I don't think he's S tier, but I think he's A still. I think he's perfectly fine. Nothing too crazy was done to him. Moving down the list, we come to Iron Man. And they removed the Iron Man's Gamma Overdrive from the Gamma Charge team up, so he no longer has Gamma, which is a big nerf to this character, as Gamma was very good for Iron Man. Then he gains a new team up anchor effect from the Stark Protocol team up with Ultron. Now for the actual hero changes, they decrease the projectile damage of the third repulsor blast from 50 damage to 45, and decrease the spell field damage from 60 to 55, so a pretty, nerf to Iron Man. Then they reduce the armor overdrive maximum bonus health from 100 to 50, because while you're in the air, if you added that extra bonus HP, you'll be, I believe, 400 HP about, or 400 HP, which was kind of crazy. Now you only get to about 350, which I think is a good change, or 300, my bad, which I think is a good change. Having 100 instant health after activating one button for a duelist was kind of crazy. Overall, I don't think the changes are particularly insane for this character. I think the biggest thing is that because Gamma's removed, this is going to make him less picked now, even though Hulk is a high priority pick. I used to have Iron Man sitting at the A tier on my last tier list for Season 2, but I think because of the changes, we knock him down to B, specifically because of the change of the Gamma. I think Gamma is what made this character so strong, and because of that change, we're knocking him down a tier, unfortunately. Now, he still is played in pro play and high-level ranked play, but for the most part, he's not going to be getting the same value anymore. And I think because you have so many hit scan characters getting buffed, like Hela, Punisher, Hawkeye, even though Hawkeye isn't a hit scan, having Hawkeye's presence, having Hela's presence, it just makes it harder for Iron Man to really... So now we come to Magik, and Magik didn't receive any changes, whether it's buffs, nerfs, or changes to the team-up ability for Seasons 2 to 2.5, and Dive as a whole is getting nerfed, so unfortunately, Magik is going to be struggling a little bit, specifically because Hawkeye is now such a high priority pick. I think Magik is going to have a more or rougher time dealing with these characters. For that reason, I think Magik sits kind of at the B tier. Of course, there are some Magik players out there that are very good. They know how to play the game very well. But because Hawkeye exists, I think we're putting her B for right now. Of course, things could change later on. But for the most part, I see her sitting at B tier. Now we move on to Moon Knight, and no changes were made from Season 2 to Season 2.5 for Moon Knight. I don't think this character is that good. Like, Season 2, he got buffed, but, I mean, you just play Hawkeye, and you just headshot him from across the map. You play Hela. Honestly, you could even play Widow and snipe him. I don't think Moon Knight is that good right now, especially in high tier play. He's not really picked. There is the occasional time you might pick him when you're playing with a Groot, but you should be comboing Groot with others, Duelist ultimates. So I think he's a low priority pick for right now. Of course, things could change as we are doing a more poke comp, and I feel like Moon Knight does a lot of poke damage, but the thing is, if you're playing Strategist, especially with Ultron, you're playing a triple Strategist setup, you're going to be farming your support ult so fast when there's an enemy Moon Knight. So realistically, I put him C tier, but with the poke comp, you could put him between C and B, but I think C is fine for Moon Knight right now. Moving on to Namor, they increased the cooldown of Blessing of the Deep from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, which is his shift ability. The Blessing of the Deep is the bubble that keeps him alive. 15 to 20 seconds is a rather big change. It's 5 seconds, but that's 5 less seconds you're going to be able to try to keep yourself alive. This is literally your survivability. This is how you live as Namor. This getting nerfed greatly makes his survivability less. Then they extended the Horn of Proteus, which is his ultimate ability, inner circle radius from 3 meters to 3.5, so a little bit bigger in the center, and outer radius from 8 meters to 9 meters, and they decreased the outer circle radius hit damage from 200 to 180. That means you can no longer one-shot 275 HP heroes if you're on that outer radius with a Luna, damage boost, which is a big change. Overall, I don't think it necessarily affects this character too much. The enemies will still get knocked down. You will still be able to get a finish shot on them after. So it's alright. Then they adjusted the monstro spawn damage fall off starting at 20 meters, reducing to 30% at 40 meters, to starting at 20 meters, reducing to 50% at 40 meters. Now, that is a little bit of a bigger change. I don't think this character is terrible at all still. If anything, I don't think he's S anymore. I think he's A. Because he lost to team up with Luna, he still has Gamma. Gamma is still good. You're still going to be playing Hulk Namor probably. You will have the Luna team up, or not team up, but the damage. So I think putting him A is perfectly fine for now. But we'll see how it goes. Again, although he is a flanking duelist, he does a lot of poke damage as well. So putting him here is fine. So moving down the list, we come to Psylocke. Between Season 2 and Season 2.5, for this new patch, all they did was decrease the retrieval rate of winged shurikens from 14 to 12 per hit. Now, this doesn't necessarily change any of her combos in particular. From what I've tested, and what I tested from the Season 2 client and the Season 2.5 client, you can still pull off the same exact combos. Maybe it might require a basic auto attack in between for some of the combos, but overall, still you can perform one-shot combos with 2 left clicks, a right click, and a dash. But what they did do is decrease the invisibility duration of Psychic Stealth from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. Now, 1 second doesn't seem like a lot, but in my opinion, that 1 second is a big change because it's less time to think about plays, less time to escape, and you have to really plan out how you're going to pull off flanks, how you're going to pull off dives with this character. And again, because we're swapping from this dive compositions to more of a poke/brawl compositions, Psylocke might be a little bit harder to play now. But overall, I don't think she's terrible. I think she's A. I don't think she's S anymore. In Season 2, she was definitely S, especially with the Emma team-up, but they nerfed the Emma team-up a little bit. So I think putting her A is perfectly fine. If, let's say, the Emma team-up didn't get nerfed, but these Psylocke nerfs were there, then I would consider A because of the Emma team-up. But because Emma team-up got nerfed and because of Psylocke got nerfed as well, so A. For her, at least, for me. Now, moving on to Punisher. The first thing I want to talk about is Punisher received a major nerf, and that was the removal of infinite ammo with Rocket. Now, typically, you would use infinite ammo to shred down Groots. You would use it to shred down Doctor Strange, shields. You use it to shred down a ton of things. Now, because this is gone, this puts a little bit strain on Punisher. But because of that, they buffed him. First, they reduced the movement slow fire rate of Final Judgment, which is his ultimate ability, from 20% to 10% when not firing, meaning you're going to be able to move a lot faster now, be able to stick with your team when you're ulting, and from 40% to 30% when firing, meaning you're going to be able, again, to stay on pace with your team, moving up when needed while in ultimate. Following that, they increased his primary rifle's magazine size from 30 to 40 and single hit damage from 18 to 19 and slightly reduced the spread when firing. Now, usually I believe I put Punisher on the lower scale on the C tier, but I think these changes actually benefit him greatly. I can see comps that circle Punisher, like Punisher Storm. I could see maybe in a triple strategist setup, say like a Mantis, an Ultron, a Luna. You're just pumping a ton of damage boosts and amplifiers to Punisher, enabling him a ton. In Season 2, I put him C. But Season 2.5, I kind of put him between A and B. I think the changes are good, but I don't think they're good enough to really make him A tier. Although I could be eating my words in a couple of weeks, moving him up to A. But I think for right now, for this tier list, for Season 2.5, I think putting him on B tier is perfectly fine. I think if we were going left to right, like on power ranking, he'd probably be above Magik and Iron Man in my eyes. But that's where I kind of see him. I'll have to see a little bit more when testing him out. Again, this is early projections. I have to see a little bit more after testing him out. Maybe he goes to A, maybe he goes to A-, maybe he goes to B+. But for the most part, I'm going to sit him in B. This is the safer pick of everything. B is perfectly fine for me. For Scarlet Witch, the next hero on the list, for Season 2 to 2.5, there was no changes made to this character. besides the team up back in Season 2, but for Season 2.5, no buffs, no nerfs, no changes to the team up. I've seen comps, like pro comps in a world where it's Scarlet Witch, Storm, Mantis, and you just super buff the Scarlet, and she literally shreds through people. Look, I don't think she's terrible. I don't think Scarlet's terrible. In the right team composition, she actually shreds through people. Like I said, Doctor Strange, Storm, Mantis, you super buff the Scarlet with the team up, and she literally just deletes everybody. I've seen that. But you have to have a ton of coordination to pull this off. I'm going to put her at B tier in the middle. But of course, there's always the exceptions for the one tricks, the people that play Scarlet a ton or any of these characters a ton to move it around on the tier list. But for the most part, for keeping it safe for the majority, I'm putting it at the B tier. If this was a team composition tier list, then I'd maybe move her up to talk about that Doctor Strange Storm comp. But for the most part, I think sitting at B tier for Scarlet is perfectly fine for Season 2.5, even though mainly for the fact that we're going into a poke comp. Scarlet Witch, you kind of have to be up close in people's faces to really get the maximum value out of this character. Because we have characters like Hawkeye, Hela, I mean, she just gets 2-tapped or 1-tapped by them. So it's kind of be hard to play this character in my eyes for this season. But we'll see as it goes on. So again, B is perfectly fine for me. So moving on, we have Squirrel Girl, and they increase the capacity of Burst Acorn from 10 to 12, so she has 12 shots instead of 10. And they decrease the cooldown of Mammal Bond from 12 seconds to 10, so you're going to be able to get another tail bounce or another stun out a lot quicker now. Then they optimize their user experience of Squirrel Blockade, Tail Bounce, and Unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami, so it looks and feels a lot better now. Overall, pretty decent changes to the character. She has more shots now, so that means more damage output. They decrease the cooldown Mammal Bond, so that means you can be able to, again, stun a lot more, escape a lot more. They didn't change anything about the damage overall, and because of that, she's in a weird spot right now in my eyes. I feel like she can be good. She does a ton of damage, and because we're going into a poke composition or poke transition, I think putting her B is perfectly fine. We can move her up once we get some more data again, but I think putting her B is the safer bet right now. So yeah. So for Star-Lord, they increased the energy cost of Galactic Legend Ultimate Ability from 3,100 to 3,400. So that's a nerf. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get your ultimate. However, they extended the maximum target range from 30 meters to 40 meters, which is a straight up buff. And they adjusted the damage falloff from reducing to 60% at 40 meters to reducing to 75% at 40 meters. Now, overall, this is a straight up buff in my eyes, mainly for the fact that you have 40 meters of range to play with now when you're ulting. Even though the damage reduces to 75% of 40 meters, you can play within that 30 to 40%, so like 31, 32, and so on, and you still have the same damage. You just have to stay within 40 meters, which, again, is just a straight-up buff. It doesn't take you long to build up Star-Lord's ultimate. You use your E ability, your spinning, and, I mean, you should, in theory, build it up super quickly. So I think putting Star-Lord A, in my eyes, is perfectly fine. They didn't nerf Guardian Revival, so res comp is still a active thing. So I think A is fine. So Storm. They buffed Storm. They increased the damage of a Mega Hurricane Ultimate from 150 a second to 160 a second. Now, that's not necessarily a major change, but the biggest change is that you have Jeff the Landstrike and Storm team up. You also have Human Torch team up with Storm. And I think Storm is one of these characters that enables Hawkeye, enables Punisher, enables Hela to do more damage. I've always thought Storm was an amazing character. I've always thought like the concept, what she can provide for the team, essentially like a secondary strategist in the duelist spot. I think this character is very good, and you see a ton in pro play right now, especially with Envy, that they're playing Storm paired with a Hawkeye or a Torch or any other of these high damage dealers. I think putting Storm, I'm gonna put her A. I'm gonna be a little ambitious with her, and I'm gonna put him A tier. I think Storm is very good. Do I think you should be banning her in comp though? Not necessarily. I would probably prioritize, say, Hawkeye, Hela, Luna, maybe Namor, Psylocke. I would still prioritize some of these other heroes to ban rather than Storm. I'm not saying because I want to play Storm or anything. I think Hawkeye and Hela, you know, Groot, Emma are going to be more of your problem heroes than Storm. So I think these heroes are going to be your problem or the characters you have to be looking out for. But overall, I think Storm is in a good spot. But she's in a little bit of a worse spot because of the buffs to Hela and Punisher and Hawkeye. So that is something to be aware of. So for that instance, we're putting her A. So Winter Soldier, aka Bucky, no changes were made between Season 2 and 2.5. And because we're going into a more poke and brawl composition or transition, like I've always stated, Bucky is even better spot now. I'm tempted to put him S. I'm truly tempted to put him S because of what the meta is going to be. Because it's going to be a poke meta. And he pokes extremely well, especially with his burst shots or his explosive primary attack. He has his E ability, which is the charges that he sends out, and it pierces enemies, slows them, knocks them down. I'm tempted to put him S. Like, he's like A+. He's like top A+ for Duelist. Like, it's so hard to really put him between... I feel bad putting him A. But I just feel like Hela and Hawkeye are going to be so much better than Winter Soldier. But I still feel like Winter Soldier is going to be insane. So that is something to be aware of. This character is still extremely strong. And I think because certain heroes got nerfed, it makes them even stronger now. Characters like Captain America. And because indirectly Captain America's got nerfed, people might be less inclined to pick him, so you won't have to team up for Winter Soldier. So that is something to be aware of. But overall, I still think Winter Soldier is a very viable and solid pick if you want to play, competitive. So A is fine for me. So Wolverine. This is an interesting character from Season 2 to Season 2.5. Not a lot of people were playing him, mainly due to the fact that Emma was a thing. And if you were going to be playing Groot, you just ban Wolverine or vice versa. But I still think Wolverine is very good. It's just, when the enemy team doesn't have a mag, it's very hard to play Wolverine because you have characters like Groot, Emma. Emma has a diamond form. Magneto can bubble the person that's getting kidnapped or bubble himself. But if you pair up with a rocket, you can easily kidnap. It's like, in my eyes, he's A tier. He's still very good. I don't understand why people underestimate him. He's still played a ton in pro play, especially on the NA region. Mainly due to the fact that there's other characters in the game. And now because we have Peni getting buffed, we have other, Vanguards getting buffed as well. Maybe we need to start picking up the Wolverine again. I think he's a great character. But because we are going into this poke meta, it might be hard for Wolverine to do a lot of things because we have characters again like Hawkeye, Hela, Bucky, Namor. Wolverine struggles into all these characters. But I will say he's still a solid choice if they're playing a group or a Vanguard in general. But so for this sake, for Season 2.5, I'm putting him A tier. Moving down the list, we have Mr. Bombastic or Mr. Fantastic. Whatever you want to call him. No changes were made between Season 2 and Season 2.5. I think this character is insane. I think a very good Fantastic can easily carry a game. I'm putting him A. Again, very solid. No reason why you can't play him. But because we are going into a more poke team composition, it might be a little bit more difficult to pull off a Mr. Fantastic. But I still think if played right, you can easily do extremely well with this character. I don't think he's S tier. He's not on par with Hela Hawkeye. You could argue, sure, but this is my opinion. I think he's very good still. Overall, it's alright. If anything, if I was doing left to right on the tier list, I'd probably put him behind Winter Soldier. Again, when I do tier lists, left to right, that doesn't mean anything. I just put them like down the order of how characters are written down on my spreadsheet, but I think I'd put him here. That's perfectly fine with me. I think he's still A tier. Then moving on, we have Human Torch. Human Torch received some changes. They reduced the damage of Fire Cluster, which is his primary attack, from 7 per hit to 6. They increased the charge speed of Blazing Blast from 2 seconds to 3. And they decreased the shield value gained from Flaming Meteor from 75 to 50. And increased the cooldown from 15 to 20, just like Namor. for his survivability. Now, this is a relatively big change, I would say, to this character. You're just going to have to play a lot more safe now. You can't necessarily go for some crazy plays. Although you can, it's going to be a little bit harder because you don't have that survivability like you used to. They reduced the damage. Hela is going to be meta. Hawkeye is going to be there. You have hit scan characters becoming stronger, so this is indirectly nerfing your flying heroes. For the most part, he's still good. If anything, I think he's between B and A, so like an A+. So I'll just put him on the A list for now. I think he's still good, but he's not S tier like he was in Season 2 anymore. He still can be played. He can still do a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's as powerful as Hela Hawkeye, right? Then you thought I forgot about him? Of course, we have Spider-Man. Spider-Man didn't receive any changes, which might be surprising to some players. But he did receive probably the biggest nerf without him actually getting nerfed. And that's the symbiote shenanigans, or was it the symbiotic bond with Venom, Peni Parker, and Spider-Man. This was the team up for Spider-Man that made him amazing. Now, because he loses this team up, I don't think he's A anymore. I think he's like B. I think this is probably a massive change that even though they're not changing the damage or anything, people don't understand how impactful that is. Because you're losing that one-shot capability, essentially, with the team-up ability. You can still perform other combos, I've seen it before, without using a Venom. But because you have that removal, it makes Venom or Spider-Man a lot harder to play now. Because he doesn't have that quick little iframe. He doesn't have that extra damage. So it's definitely going to be harder to play Spider-Man now. Especially with Namor, and I feel like Hawkeye kind of indirectly counters Spider-Man. I've done it before. Spider-Man jumps on the Hawkeye presses shift, which is the crescent slash, so it pushes him away, then it's a quick headshot. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can do that, or it takes a little bit more skill. I think it's just a lot harder for Spider-Man now to do anything because we're doing a poke meta now, rather than a dive meta, so again, hurting him quite a bit. But anyways, that was the Duelist section so far. If you're finding it entertaining or helpful in any way, shape, or form, do me a favor. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you're new. Greatly helps out the channel. This is all my opinion. Everything can change here and there, so don't be too angry about this. But anyways, onto the strategist section. So kicking off our strategist, we're going to be talking first about Adam Warlock. Now again, we're moving more to a poke style meta. Adam Warlock can do a lot of poke damage. I think I've always thought Adam Warlock is a great strategist in my eyes. With the change from Season 2 that he gets more healing, or healing recharges faster because of headshots, I think he's a very solid healer. But the thing is, because we're going to a poke, this poke meta, poke composition, we need more sustained strategists, right? People aren't necessarily going to be diving you, so you don't necessarily need that soul bond right now. And because we need more consistent healing because people are going to be taking a ton of poke damage. You don't want to waste your Avatar live streams just for that little bit of poke damage. Typically, you use Avatar live stream. When the enemy was diving you, you needed a ton of burst healing. He's a burst healer. Because of the meta changes, this kind of makes the character a little bit harder to play, so I'm putting him B tier because of the meta change. If the meta didn't change, I still think he would be A tier. But again, because of this meta change, he's going to be a little bit harder to play, or I guess you wouldn't want to pick this character over other healers in the game because he does the burst healing. Now moving on, we have Cloak and Dagger. Now no changes were made between Season 2 and Season 2.5, but I am a Tier 1 Cloak and Dagger hater. You might be wondering why. I love Cloak and Dagger. The Cloak and Dagger is so fun. Well, it's mainly because of her kit. Her kit isn't really good. The only kit part of her kit that's actually good is Cloak's blinding wall that he sends out that makes targets vulnerable. I don't think she's good, or this duo is good whatsoever. There's so many better options. Like this Cloak and Dagger is like when everything else is banned in the entire game, then I pick Cloak and Dagger. I think she's B or C. In between B and C, like she's not. They're not terrible. Like, if all the other healers are banned, then you can play them. But I just don't think she's that good, or they're that good. So next up we have Jeff. So they killed the flanking Jeff, but they added a new effect to Joyful Splash, which is primary attack. It now also deals damage to enemies at 70 damage a second, and can heal allies through other allies and enemies. This is the big thing. It now heals allies through other allies. Usually before it was single target, but you can heal allies through other allies now, which is really good. That's why people are like, oh, this Jeff change is so bad. But they don't read that part. Is from what I've noticed from other videos. They don't read that part. Another thing is that they changed the Aqua Burst, which is his right click, charge ability, to a max 3 charges and 3 seconds per charge. Direct hits now launch enemies up and the spill field damage from 40 to 45. So your right click, you have 3 shots, it recharges. You hit the enemy directly, it launches them up into the air. It does about, 45 damage? I mean, yes, it does hurt. And then they changed the effect of Healing Bubble from one-time healing to healing over time, increasing healing amount from the previous instance, 85 to 120 over 4 seconds. And then they reduced the max charge from 6 to 3 and removed the enemy launch-up effect. Okay, then they added a new effect to Hide and Seek. It now has an energy cap max of 120, so you can't stay under the ground forever now. You have to come up. And then they increased the damage reduction received when taking a critical hit from 50 to 70, which is a pretty big change. Then they increased the energy cost of its Jeff Ultimate from 4,000 to 4,500. Now, I'm kind of split with this. Like, in my eyes, I like the Jeff change for the fact that, look, Strategists, I understand. Strategists can deal damage, they can heal. They can do either or they can do both. I totally agree with that. I think that's a great feature. Because strategists are there to strategize the battle, right? Not necessarily there to just heal. But kind of in Marvel Rivals, it seems like a lot of the heroes are there just to heal. But I don't think this change is necessarily bad for Jeff. Although, yes, they removed one playstyle. I understand your frustration. But I think he can still heal now. Like, I think it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Even though if you want to play Jeff a certain way. I think before I had him at C tier in Season 2. I think Season 2.5, I think he goes to B tier. No cap. Again, you can hate me in the comments all you want, but this is my opinion of what you're probably going to see. Because we already know what the other 2 healers that are going to be played. It's pretty obvious. So I guess let's talk about the other obvious healers, which is Loki. Loki's S tier. Nothing was changed. This character is amazing. You can't argue with me. Loki's like one of, if not the best strategist in the entire game. After Loki, we have Luna Snow. Literally, all they did was buff Luna Snow. They increase the light and dark ice healing amount and damage from 20 per round to 22. So you're healing more and you're doing more damage. They added a new effect to Absolute Zero, which is her freezing stun, and now grants 50 bonus health per enemy hit. So you land a stun, you get 50 bonus HP, which is absolutely insane. Then they increased the energy cost of Fate of Both Worlds' ultimate ability from 4,500 to 5,000, which might seem like a nerf, and it definitely is a nerf. But the thing is, they increased her healing and damage amount, meaning she's going to be able to charge up her ult faster because of that change. And they increase the energy costs of Fate of Both Worlds, so it takes longer to, in theory, get that ultimate. But because they did the change, like I said, with the healing and the damage, it's practically the same exact thing. Like, when you really look at it, there wasn't necessarily a change to her ultimate at all. I think this character is S, there's no doubt about it. Mantis, I really want Mantis to be good. I really like the character. I think she's such an interesting character with how you have to manage the life orbs and the damage boost. But unfortunately, because we're going to a poke meta, I mean, maybe Mantis is good here. It's so hard to really know. But from what I'm probably going to be seeing, I don't think she's going to be that good. I think I put her B. Now for Rocket, what they did was between Season 2 and Season 2.5, the only change that was done in Season 2.5 was that they reduced the repair mode direct hit healing amount from 55 to 50. Not the end of the world for this character. Still decent healing. You still have everything else, the ultimate. But now you have a team up with Peni Parker. And the team up's pretty good. It is the... Pull it up. It is the Rocket Network. And it's as a team up anchor, Rocket Raccoon gains a 5% increase in healing effects. When the team up is active, Rocket's BRB is upgraded to the Web Beacon, and I've tested it out. It's pretty fun to do. But the thing is, the team up anchor, Rocket gains a 5% increase in healing effects. This is your static healing bonus effect for the season. So it's a very good percent. I wish I would say in character select that it's a permanent effect. You don't have to have the team up activated, but it is very good. So for that instance, I'm putting Rocket A. Again, order left to right doesn't mean anything. Then for Invisible Woman, they didn't do anything between Season 2 and Season 2.5. What they did do was kind of nerf the Fantastic Four team-up, so they increased the cooldown of Storm's siblings, all the other team-ups that each character has, from 20 seconds to 25. So a pretty good change. This kind of nerfs Human Torch as well. Now, I'm a person that doesn't like Invis. If Luna and Loki is up, I always say play Luna Loki. Even if you have a torch, even if you have a torch, Luna, Loki, and Viz are all up and Torch is up, I still think you play Luna Loki with the torch. Even though the shield and the team up is nice for torch, I think having the Snowflake and just having Luna as a healer with the Loki is just way too good to pass up. I'm sorry, that's just how I see it. I think this is such a high priority that you have to look at that. You can't look at other healers when you have these two up. I'm putting her A because if all else fails, then you pick her. I put her above these four, especially because we're going to a more poke-driven meta. I think putting her there is fine. Now moving on to Ultron, our new healer. Ultron is an interesting character. He is a strategist that does poke damage from a long range. He has infinite range with his primary attack, with a little bit of damage fall off. Just a little bit, not a ton. He has okay healing. His E ability is the repair bot. Not the repair bot, but the healing bot. That you have to be within 40 meters. You can break line of sight, and then it would go away after a couple seconds. But for the most part, you have to maintain line of sight within 40 meters, constantly healing the person you selected and the allies within that circle, with healing over time. His right click gives bonus health, shift is flight. His ultimate is Age of Ultron, which should be used for healing your teammates rather than dealing damage to enemies. He's good at taking out other flying heroes, so that is something to be aware of. And I already have team compositions I've cooked up. I think you supercharge a DPS. You would go Luna, Mantis, Ultron. You put Snowflake, the Ultron bot, and a damage boost on your Duelist character, and your Duelist literally just deletes everybody. Now, that is a comp you can run. I'm putting Ultron B. Like, I think Ultron is good in certain scenarios in the triple strategist lineup, but if you're playing a double strategist setup, I don't think you run Ultron as your second strategist. Like, Luna Ultron, I don't think you can run. I don't think there's enough healing. Like, look, you can admit that Ultron's new, give him some time. But from what I've tested and what I've seen, it's just... Yes, strategists can deal damage. They can do that. It can be a damage strategist. There's nothing wrong with that. I agree. But I just feel like if you have Luna with the Ultron, there's not enough healing. If you have a Luna or you have a Loki with Ultron, not enough healing. If you have Invis with Ultron, not enough healing. And the list goes on and on. I think you have to play Ultron in the triple strategist lineup. I think that's the only way you can actually get value out of this character in the best way. Whether you want to admit it or not, you will not be able to out-sustain the enemy team if there's a Hawkeye, there's a Hela, there's a Star-Lord. It's just... I don't think you can. Again, this was the early tier list. Things can change in a week or so. So just give it some time. This is my early predictions, essentially. But like I said, yeah, hopefully you like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hope you have a great day, and see you later.